Hello everyone. Welcome you all to the TechGig webinar. Thank you for joining the session today. The topic of today's talk is Emergence of Conversational Applications with Web 3.0. It will be a 1-hour session with around 40 to 45 minutes for the presentation and the remaining time for the Q&A. So if you have any questions, please send them to us using the Questions tab on the GoToWebinar control panel. I'm Sabah, the moderator of this session, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to our guest speaker, Mr. Rohit Agarwal. Rohit is the President and Chief Innovations Officer of Digital Harbor. He is a serial entrepreneur and inventor, having successfully founded and sold 2 high-growth companies previously. Rohit also serves as the President and Chairman on the Mindshare Alumni Network, a group of 850 plus CEOs driving innovation and entrepreneurship in the DC metro region. The leading industry expert in real-time risk management platforms. So without any further delay, let me introduce you all to our guest speaker. Over to you, Rohit.
Thank you. Good morning, or should I say, I guess, good afternoon in India. Today, I want to have a conversation with you about the next frontier in enterprise applications, a conversation about conversational apps. In order to have this conversation, I think it's very important that we understand the context of where we are with respect to the web and how it really translates to the enterprise. And the best way to do that is to really have a roadmap or a journey that we can take since the early 90s when enterprise apps went into the web paradigm. The first period of the web, which I would suggest is more in the 95 to 2005, the first decade, is Web 1.0. And that was mostly focused on global access to applications in the enterprise that could be available globally, anywhere, anytime, using the web interface. That was a revolution by itself because enterprise applications until that far were limited to either mainframe 2-tier systems or at best 3-tier systems requiring access from specific places only. So web technologies which started in the consumer side are as content management emerged as a medium for adoption by the enterprise for enterprise applications. And the enterprise applications adopted the interface side of the technology to be able to deliver user experiences over a wide area network. The next piece in the web, which is what we call as the Web 2.0, started in the 95, 97 time frame, and it's been going on until recently. So obviously it is in its acceleration phase now, the next decade, as I described. That's been focused on the going not just from the desktop access, but mobile access. And at the same time, another paradigm that has emerged on the web, which enterprises have only so far used slightly, although it's more in pervasive mode in the consumer side of things, which we all talk about social media. The social media as a platform has been adopted more in the marketing sense by the business, but not necessarily in the enterprise application space. Today, I'm going to talk to you about Web 3.0. It is in its early stages at this point, in the last year or two, and it is associated with the fact that you can now actually go beyond just having static applications to conversational applications. Web 3.0 essentially is moving the enterprise beyond just transactions to enabling contextual intelligence within those applications, and at the same time providing a different form of collaboration that we see now broadly in the social media, but now being available in just in time, just enough on-the-fly and dynamic collaboration between business users, either within the enterprise, across departments, or across enterprise, across stakeholders globally. This Web 3.0 is really focused on something different than what Web 1.0 and 2.0 were focused on. They were primarily focused on transaction management. So from the enterprise perspective, they were enabling better and faster transactions. Web 3.0 is mostly focused on better and smarter and faster decision making. So this is actually at the next level of efficiency in the enterprise, which using technology sets that have more recently emerged as part of the Web 2.0 and the early Web 3.0 in the consumer space, which has become much more dynamic using pervasive mobile technology as well as pervasive social media technology for collaborations and conversations. So, now that we know kind of the roadmap of where the Web 3.0 fits in and that it is a next frontier in the context of web, I want to kind of again revisit where the inspiration comes from. The Web 3.0 inspiration comes from the usual source, Star Trek. I remember when I was growing up in India, Star Trek used to be my, one of my most favorite shows, the top 3. Every Sunday we used to get it, and I used to, really wait for it. But Star Trek has enchanted millions of people, especially engineers and scientists across the globe. And a lot of the technology that we see today in both Web 1.0 and 2.0 actually somewhat comes from Star Trek. So whether it's the tricorders, whether it is the touch screen devices and computers, so all of those, both of those generations actually came from Star Trek. So the next inspiration for Star Trek to us, going from the consumer world, you see, of course, is now, full of gadgets that really actually did come from Star Trek. Now, when I talk about Web 3.0, for those of you who are Star Trek fans, would know that in about the second generation of Star Trek, which is the start of the next generation, we had the situation where it was not just touchscreen, but you could talk to the computer. And at the same time, the computer would actually become your real assistant, where it would guide you, and you would, of course, control logs and command logs, and truly become your counselor as well. So that's what we are going now with the Web 3.0, and the Web 3.0 essentially is the next generation of the user experience that evolved from the initial Star Trek to the next, to the next generation Star Trek. So what is driving Web 3.0? Because it's very important to understand the technology in the context of what the drivers are. If you look at Web 2.0, it was driven by mobility, and because Web 1.0 did achieve essentially the original goal of being able to access applications and from wherever you are, but not necessarily in a mobile context, because these applications were designed for much bigger screens. And mobile applications, at the time when we were discussing, smartphones, it was more of a joke. People really thought they would never really happen, because it was very hard to actually access information in a very small device. So as I will talk about in a little bit, the 2.0 web did several major innovations and transformations to enable access to information, consumption of that information, and action associated with that information on a mobile device. But what is driving Web 3.0? What is driving Web 3.0 is the fact that in the enterprise today, there is too much data and too few decisions. So that means that most enterprises today have access to dozens of different databases of their own in terms of departmental systems that they store data in, as well as access to lots of intelligence from the external sources. And yet, when they are making decisions during complex business processes, they are still using the CRUD format of, create, record, update, and delete databases versus the applications as decision support and applications that enables them to collaborate with other people. So the this dichotomy between too much data, but that data not being accessible within the applications themselves, within day-to-day transactions, whether it is filing a mortgage loan, whether it is getting accredited by a licensed agency, whether it is any compliance or risk context, all kinds of stakeholder transactions in businesses which are complex and require knowledge workers to participate in, literally don't have access to that data within the context that they have. Contrast that with, let's say, a B2C, where you do see that a consumer, for example, does seem to have access to certain amounts of intelligence now that it didn't have 5 or 10 or 15 years ago. That means, for example, that to be able to see related products, to be able to see what other people have bought when they have bought this, or to be able to see the reviews about what people are saying and having a conversation about that product. So in an e-commerce context, for example, there is more information that is available to make better decisions, but that eludes us today in the enterprise world. The other problem that's happening is that the workforce today is highly mobile, and it is becoming highly dispersed, which means that these enterprise class applications, let alone just the B2C applications, which have been, in the last 2 or 3 years only, become truly mobile, have to also become mobile, and they also have to enable these diverse set of peoples to actually work with each other in a mobile context. Of course, the biggest pressure of all is really the shrinking timelines. Today, as opposed to 10 years ago, people are no longer interested in long timelines. You can't really say that a mortgage loan, for example, will take you 4 weeks. You can't say that in order to get a business license of any kind, in a healthcare a professional license, it will take you 3 to 6 months. Those kinds of timelines are not acceptable anymore because people are so used to a straight-through processing and electronic transactions that literally take minutes and seconds. So they expect that even complex transactions need to take more in terms of days and weeks, and not weeks and months, and sometimes, as I said again, even years when it comes down to compliance and risk type stuff. And all of that has to be done with a workforce that is very fungible, and that means that it is moving in and out. The whole millennium generation doesn't have the concept of 10 or 20 or 30 years in a business. Literally, most employees may stay at 2 to 5 years. So there is actually really no time to train and expect that, after a couple of years, they're so experts so they can handle the customers better. Not to mention that the expectation of customers or partners or suppliers or stakeholders is that they expect anybody to be able to help them process their request of their transaction with a level of expediency that comes with what used to be months or even years of experience and experts. So this whole notion of transferring what has happened to consumers today, where they can go into almost any e-commerce website and actually do and conduct transactions without any training. The question and the key now is, can you engage in complex business processes on both the buyer side or as well as on the enterprise side without requiring any training? And that is really the big dilemma for the enterprise, which is driving now a next set of technologies, which I'm calling Web 3.0. So what is a complex business transaction? In a complex business transaction, you are collecting tons of information. You have an application for a business loan, an application for a mortgage loan, an application for getting credentialed, for example, to be a provider in a healthcare network, any kind, a college application, a visa application for that matter. any kind of transaction which requires 10, 20, 50, 100, 200 pages of information to be submitted, lots of data and evidentiary documents is essentially a part of a complex transaction. The complex business transaction on the back end requires a processing of that information, and observations on the back end to be able to assess the efficiency and effectiveness of that information, to be able to record decisions and actions, and to actually then be able to make decisions on that application. So that is what is a complex business transaction today. Most of these complex business transactions still are manual and still are largely paper-driven because electronic forms, for example, do not really go beyond 10 pages or more. Electronic decisions that involve you to underwrite or make decisions, whether based on risk or opportunity, involve systems and a lot of different stakeholders across those systems. And as a result of it, they also involve a lot more time. And the decision making for large matter is still very poor because any kind of statistical or contextual information around those transactions is largely unknown, even though the data exists. In some cases in multiple data sources, in other cases in data warehouses, but that piece of information is not available within a specific supply chain or risk management application that a person is going through. So all of that today is done, as I said again, in largely manual environments, with both the collaboration being manual and the workflow being manual, as well as even the access and analysis being done manually. So it is very hard that to have, this sped up, make it faster, make it better, without actually having enabling a different kind of collaboration. And so we can actually use the inspiration that we see in the consumer world, where the collaboration is becoming so much faster within, using social media platforms, truly unstructured collaboration, of course, between parties on their common forms of interest. It is, of course, contrastingly different for the enterprise, because unlike a free-form collaboration that exists in the consumer's world based on mutual life's interests and entertainment, is different in the context of the enterprise world, which is more focused on a work-based transaction and getting to an outcome that is related to work. So while the context is different, the methodology and the inspiration can be very similar, and the tools at the same time could be similar as well. So business doesn't, the challenge now we have essentially is that these complex processes, as you described, can take months and quarters to happen. A visa process, for example, in the United States, and I'm not talking about travel visas here, can take months and years to happen. From a tax filing to regulatory filing to getting licenses, and in almost all types of supply chain transactions that involve significantly complex work products also have pretty long duration cycles. Usually, as I said again, months and quarters. If you try to figure out how to speed that up, some part of that could be done using automation, but a large part of it is where the real trouble is. There is analytics and decision support required in order to conduct these transactions. If these transactions were simple in the sense that you could make them straight through, you could actually have them more similar to e-commerce type transactions, which can happen during the minutes and or less hours. but these are by purpose. There's a tons of information that needs to be processed, analyzed, compared, contrasted, and put into the situation of the business policies, whether it is, as I said again, approving a credit card loan or a business loan, or in an oil and gas, for example, trying to achieve a permit. So all of those transactions are relatively complex, and they also involve tons of different people. They usually don't involve just one person on the other end, let alone be able to be done by the computer all alone. So the issue for the business now is, how do we use the new sets of technologies, from data analytics to social collaboration technologies, infused and brought about in the enterprise space, so that all of us are besmirched by the fact that we see a lot of excitement about these technologies in the consumer world. The media, of course, wants to report about them, mostly in the Silicon Valley context of enabling this for the consumer. But there has really been very little action on the enterprise side. Enterprise side has always been the boring, cousin, and technologies evolve slowly on the enterprise side. The innovations we saw in the 90s, for example, on the enterprise side, where we see large-scale database technologies. More recently, you have some of the big data stuff that's taken over, and a lot of the cloud in terms of how you do deployment and DevOps type stuff. But the actual consumer, the UI, UX, and the experience associated with the technologies on the enterprise hasn't changed much in the last 5 years. So what if applications can actually understand you? So we're not talking about any more static applications, which are where the user actually is in charge and is involved in figuring out how to use the application. But instead, the application itself starts understanding you. What if it could actually guide you? So you do not have to know and train on that application. Neither do you have to know and understand the full context of the transaction, because it will guide you about the transaction. What if it could answer any questions you have? So the application itself can actually answer your questions rather than your colleagues. What if it can alert you about either the risks or opportunities involved with that transaction, so that it could actually show you red flags, highlight the things that you need to be working on within that transaction, for example. What if it can bring you helpful information or make suggestions critical to your decisions? So just like in an e-commerce world, where information about who got this or what else did they buy, or what are related or similar products, or even what somebody has reviewed about is critical information. What is similar kinds of information, even more varied types of information pertinent to the transaction, could be brought forward to you as you interact with the information. What if the application itself responds to your actions? So as you perform actions, the application changes, morphs, and allows you. And what if it learns from you and improves over time? What if the application itself, in totality, acts as your agent, your advisor, and your consultant, all in one? So we are now talking about no longer the classic enterprise app, which is considered a tool. In fact, business often uses the word tool. Instead, what if the application itself became more human-like, an agent, an advisor, or a consultant? That is what I mean when I talk about conversational apps. Conversational apps that can listen to you. They can even talk to you. They can allow you to chat about your data, within your data. They can allow you to share and collaborate any portion of the app or all of it with anywhere inside or outside the organization, literally on the fly. What conversational apps that can help you connect the dots. And what I mean by connecting the dots is essentially being able to take different pieces of information that are involved in that transaction, both in the starting point of the transaction, like say in the application, and anything available to the enterprise inside or outside, and help you connect it to make decisions. And at the same time, track it to make it auditable and to link all your conversations and your communications in one place associated with that transaction. That is what a conversational app is about. So is conversational app just a buzzword? Well, in order to really discuss the fact that it is very different, let me give you kind of an analogy of what happened really in the Web 2.0 paradigm. When the iPhone delivered what is currently the today's smartphone, that was significantly different than the old days mobile phones or the flip phones. We don't even remember that anymore because we're so used to the new interface today. But the innovations that were involved in terms of dynamic touch, in terms of flipping, if you did not have the ability to flip the screen, you wouldn't be able to consume a lot of information on a small screen. If you weren't able to pinch to zoom in and out, you wouldn't be able to make it readable. So those kinds of innovations, for example, that drove essentially a conversational, the Web 2.0 interface were critical for mobility. A conversational user interface is the next frontier or the next transformation of the interface itself. So the entire UI and UX is going to be similar in one sense, just like mobile was an evolution of the old, but in some sense quite different. So when you really look at it today, the mobile interface is significantly different than it was 10 or 15 years ago. Similarly, what we are looking at in a conversational user interface is context, information being presented wherever you are in a micro context so that it is helpful and meaningful. It's presented to you with emotions, because humans, when they are looking to interact, when they're looking to make decisions, they are looking for more human-like qualities. An interface that is reactive, not just responsive, which is the mobile interface, but actually reactive, which reacts to every click that you do, every action that you take, every word that you utter. An interface that is animated and that involves not only animation, but audio and visual interface. So it's not just visual. It combines all senses that a human has. You'll be able to see it. You'll be able to talk to it. You can be able to hear it. You can touch it. At the same time, you can also an interface that is proactive, not reactive. That is, it actually is learning based on what you are doing and predicting and then suggesting actions to you as you are interacting with it. That is what a conversational app would look like, and that is what an interface has to be for essentially a conversational user interface. So at Digital Harbor, we are actually creating this platform. It will be the first platform that delivers conversational apps to the enterprise. And by platform, I mean that it will enable developers worldwide in any domain to be able to deliver these conversational apps to their customers. So that's why I call it a platform. This technology has been available within the Digital Harbor. So we actually have been delivering some of these apps to some of our enterprise customers over the last 12 to 18 months. And we are now in the process of releasing this platform within the next 12 months to the broader enterprise and to the broader developer community, so that they can deliver a totally new class of applications, a class of applications that include social forms. So no longer are you limited by two-dimensional electronic forms or paper or PDF forms, but now we're talking about three-dimensional social forms, which combine data, documents, conversations, communications, all inside, contextually fused in a form. We're talking about all of that driven with a new class of intelligence by my favorite, Lucy. I mentioned earlier that I had several favorite shows when I was growing up in India, and actually one of them outside of Star Trek was Lucy. So we named essentially our assistant Lucy. They're much similar to the consumer side of things, which are whether it's Siri or Alexa. But Lucy is an enterprise assistant, not necessarily a personal assistant, which really understands the enterprise context and allows you to actually have transactional decision-making conversations with the enterprise. Social analytics, social workflow, a totally new class of workflow, dynamic, expandable, on the fly, with intelligence built in it. A new class of security that goes beyond role-based security, elastic security, and more. So what this gives you, just a sneak preview of what something as simple as an electronic form that everybody is familiar with is actually going to be transformed with this concept of conversational apps. Because with Lucy, you can research, you can actually chat, you can actually enable and access intelligent information, at the same time record your decisions and provide assessments, and then it will actually use that knowledge for the future, connecting you with other people, telling you who can actually answer this question in your organization, who others have worked on similar or related cases, and to be able to then provide you answers itself, learning from other people's actions and decisions and knowledge captured in these applications. In essence, this is all about a technology that is created by fusing artificial intelligence with business intelligence with collaborative intelligence, AI plus BI plus CI. And the outcome of that essentially means two times the data accuracy, 3 times quality of decisions, and 5 times faster turnaround times. With that, I will turn over to actually take some questions. Because we're at the 45-minute mark. Okay, give me a second here as I open up the panel. It's actually ironic or sort of slightly awkward to have a conversation about conversational apps using a webinar format, which isn't necessarily truly interactive. You guys can hear me, but obviously I can't hear you. I think one of the first questions I see is the difference between IoT and Web 3.0. What I was describing around the Web 3.0, IoT is one part of Web 3.0. In fact, Web 3.0 has multiple forms, just like the Web 2.0 had social media collaboration on one side, at the same time mobile experiences on the other side. So sensor-based IoT is one. What I was more focused on around the Web 3.0 is the paradigm associated with the enterprise major applications themselves. So, with current data, with current transactions. Another question I have is, where does semantic web fit in? Web 3.0, Digital Harbor has always been, and it's my personal passion around semantic web. Our current platform that we designed in 2005 was the world's first model-driven ontology-based architecture, and it was deployed in production systems worldwide. Some of you are probably familiar with KYC, Know Your Customer, that was coined by Digital Harbor, which is now a standard in 120 countries, and it actually used ontology-based applications, so true semantic web applications. The Web 3.0 is the next level of semantic web, where the application itself not only understands semantics, but reacts to that semantics and actually truly becomes a conversational. So it not only is understanding the user semantics, but translating and then making the user understand the semantics of the enterprise itself. The next question is, what is social analytics? So today, social analytics has two components to it. It is fusing analytics with social interaction. That means that users need to be able to chat about the data. So when they are actually looking at dashboards, they are trying to make decisions, but humans don't really make decisions in isolation. They actually share it with their colleagues, and then they like to actually have a discussion before they make decisions. And so enabling this next layer of conversation and collaboration on top of analytics, and then being able to record that, and then use that and mine that itself. So you can ask you can find out how many times somebody asked this, what did we do when last time this happened? For example, when the bug rate arrival rate was high, or when there were more higher percentage people applying in terms of risk score. So you can actually, there is more information and intelligence in the actual observations by humans than in the data itself. So social analytics is, one component of social analytics is being able to use that and mine that part of it. The other part of social analytics, of course, is SNA, social network analysis, who's talking to whom, who's working with whom, and to provide you collaborative intelligence associated with who would know the answer to this, for example. And again, that is based on interaction of users with the data. Is there any collaboration with one company to another company? Elastic security is a new paradigm being as part of this conversational apps. That means you are no longer restricted by role-based security and pre-provisioned users for applications. Any user which has the right privileges can share a portion of their app or the particular case they're working on with anybody outside the organization on the fly. So in a loan mortgage, a underwriter at a bank can actually collaborate with an appraiser or a field agent in some other on the fly without actually having them pre-access. You're not giving them access to the entire system. You are giving them access to just in time, just enough, the portion of the specific application and specific case, and at the same time that information may disappear after a few days. So this whole concept of transient applications will allow a new class of users, no longer just virtual users, but elastic users. An application itself may have 100 or 1,000 mainstream users, at the same time tens of thousands of elastic users at any given point in the enterprise. And the question I see here is, how does a machine learning will be, deep skills to teach the application to work at? A lot of this, of course, that you see is based on the concepts of using AI, but context-based AI, and using information about the work itself. One of the advantages of using conversational technology in an enterprise context is that it is more focused, because you are really focused on a task, whether it's an example of a mortgage loan or a college application. The enterprise knows the particular type of transaction they're trying to accomplish with you. And given that transactional context, it is much more easy versus a free-form AI, which is, let's say, a Siri or Alexa, which is trying to figure out anything and everything that you could do. So machine learning that involves the domain itself and modeling the domain ontology and then writing business rules and interactions associated with business policies is a lot easier than generating, as I said again, a truly expert system, which is kind of a holy grail for everybody. One of the questions that I see here is that if there is a form that you're going to fill, if you type in the wrong text, how we can correct it with only a conversation. Well, I think I actually showed an example of that. But conversational technology can go further than that. In fact, the example I gave you was you had to correct it. The form itself can show actually correction. Identify, for example, is I think you may have the mistyped here, knowing the fact that Agarwal actually has only one of 3 spellings. And given that, it will actually sort of say that, can you make sure? So this is an example of not necessarily an error, because you could have typed in the way you wanted to, and it may be the right information, but it anticipating using knowledge bases and databases. And this is something that we are actually deploying to our customers today, where it is correcting you as you go along, or potentially giving suggestions associated with it. The question, it says business case study for a different domain where SET is implemented. We have implemented SET in multiple domains, healthcare primarily, with some banking applications as well. The reach of SET is, as I said, going to be regardless of domains. It is going to be where complex business processes, that's going to be the first target. 5 years from now, maybe a whole class of applications would be more conversational. But today, where the real big need is applications which require you to have a significant knowledge. So when you are in a healthcare domain and you are a healthcare practitioner, in order for you to bill with a healthcare payer, insurance company, you have to submit an application that could last between 50 pages to 200 pages. It takes 3 to 6 months for you to get approved so you can start billing and taking patients for those bills. That's a very complex and a very paradigm, and you have to have a lot of knowledge and understanding of what you're supposed to fill out, just like if you would have as a individual consumer have to have a significant knowledge about how to fill out a college application and specific to that college to try to get in. Those are the kinds of business processes. Lots of and most risk and compliance applications, all of those are extremely complex. They require a lot more knowledge, and as I said again, a lot of stakeholders to collaborate with. Those are really the targets for conversational technologies with SET. It seems that I think that a question about talking about Siri or Microsoft or Cortana. Their focus of some of the other players here that we see is less on, it's more focused on the consumer themselves and more in the personal assistant space. Keep in mind, our focus on the conversational side is to make the traditional enterprise applications themselves, not necessarily enabling the user to say, can you order me a pizza or a library, but more a complex business transaction. So when you actually go into Bank of America's website, that you could actually, it could say, hi, I'm Lucy from Bank of America. I'll help you complete your business loan application. Or I will help you, find a broker, for example, and allow you to conduct a brokerage application, for example. So it's a different context, and the AI is different, and also it combines, as I said, beyond AI, it is combining BI and CI, which are from transactional and decision databases from within the enterprise. Last set of few questions I can take. There is obviously a tremendous set of questions here, and we could try to post some of these answers later on, but given the time, I'll take a last couple more. How effective is the conversational form for a Gen X user inquiry forms, and how can we make it effective? One of the big pieces of the puzzle from a complex form is that a form itself is not just about data. In fact, in most of these complex applications, the data represents a very small component. Typical example, I gave you the mortgage loan example. It's a lot of the documents that you have to submit with the data. It's a lot of the conversations you have to have with your agent, for example, or with the appraiser who's appraising your property, for that matter. And it is a lot of the back and forth communication that has to happen between underwriters and the consumer themselves. So in those examples, the form definition changes from being just a two-dimensional data form to have to be able to combine all of this and do that, all contextually. And so in that sense, as I said, it is it's three-dimensionalizing these instruments, and there are about 26 different extra capabilities that are required, all the way from auto corrections to web service enablement of these forms that can allow you to actually conduct a transaction of something as complex as a business loan without actually even talking to the agent, because the application itself is actually talking to you and guiding you in that process. Not only at the time of filling out, but throughout the life cycle till you get approved. All of that conversation over the period of days and weeks can actually happen using the conversational apps. Last question I'll take here is what technologies are being used to make such kind of conversational apps. So the technology behind the conversational apps that I've been showing is a multitude of technologies. Of course, it is using the latest and greatest stack. Ours, of course, is all the Java stack. So whether it is AngularJS front end to Node.js to JE7 to stacks as well, but it includes, for example, workflow technology, BPM technology, content management technology, analytics technologies, and of course AI technologies. It is creating a new layer of technologies on top of these existing stacks, and a lot of it is about context mining. A lot of it is about fusing, providing a framework where application components can have a plug-in into these discrete microservices, and really providing a framework of how different microservices can actually talk to each other using a interactive and dynamic context to then give a response to an end user to bring in the application behavior. So there are newer technologies in terms of both the conversational user interface, or CUI, to the semantic layers in the middle, which actually orchestrate the user interaction into queries and then linking and fusing the responses that can connect to the actual end user. So I would say it will be a gamut of different technologies on top of the latest stack. The technology, while our technology is written, of course, in Java, it is platform independent, so it can leverage microservices written in .NET and Rail and a variety of other systems as well. With that, I will conclude this presentation. Thank you all for attending and with your insightful questions. I enjoyed answering several of them.
Thank you so much, Rohit, for this really empowering and motivating session today. I would also like to thank all our participants for making this webinar a great success. This session has been recorded and the recording will soon be available on TechGig.com. Thank you everyone for joining us.